My internet's broken. Well, not the internet, but that particular website is broken.
No website for you.
No website for this guy over here. Hey, rollers. We got Josh and Gabriel here.
It's your boy J-Malt.
J-Malt and G-Wiz.
Ooh.
Back on the mic for another recording session here in January 2025. That is an important timestamp because in the episode that was released on January 1st of this year, 2025, I did a little whoopsie. It was just a little whoopsie.
A little oopsie doodle. That's okay.
Yeah. Or throughout the month of December. December's always been like I'm sure it is for a lot of people, especially in North America, a very complicated month with lots of things happening, lots of emotions, lots of dealing with in-laws and relatives. I mean, getting to see them. I typically will front load like the organizational part of my workflow like 2 to 3 weeks in advance. And we had several episodes ready to enter into that organizational flow. Unfortunately, due to a very small change on how Google Drive, which we use for organization, organizes its folders, it was literally whoever created the folder just mistyped on it, and then Alon went in and edited it to make it correct, but he edited it after we made another folder. So in my visual, the older folder said it was more recently modified. And in my tired December holiday brain was like, that's a newer episode. And so I had made my own folder structure on my laptop, which was incorrect and produced wholly the wrong episode. Fortunately, I was doing like a little bit of several episodes, so I have a lot of work done on lots of episodes. And I also did start doing stuff with the correct episode, just didn't realize. And this is also something, and we'll possibly get more into this as we're talking about other podcasts, but like something that I've noticed, like working on this podcast and a couple others that I've consulted on, is like sometimes you get so into the meta of working on a moment that there is no context for this moment. It is just this moment type of thing. It is this band of audio of making these words sound right. My partner Jessica was listening to me one time edit an episode, and she made the comment. She was like, "Didn't you just listen to that moment like 10 minutes ago?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "And you like listened to that moment like 15 times in a row 10 minutes ago." And I'm like, "Yes. Why are you back to it?" Like, well, this moment 10 minutes later referenced something from 10 minutes ago, and I need to make sure I didn't get rid of that thing it referenced. And so it's just that constant, like, I can get so deep into the details that sometimes the overarching connectivity and continuity starts to crumble because I'm like, these specific string of words need to sound good. And then later brain goes, and also they need to make sense.
Right. Well, there's also the fact that you have been through multiple conversations with the whole cast. You have been given the direct instruction, let's get rid of like the rules talk, maybe some of the like above the table talk, like that sort of stuff. It really slows down the action of the episode if we spend 5 minutes going, wait, how does polymorph work again?
Or the like, wait, I thought your armor class was higher than that. No, my armor class is like this. Well, wasn't it higher than that? Yeah, it was higher than that before. And you're like, this is not fun audio.
Yeah, it changed because the thing happened with my armor in like 2 episodes ago. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, The audience knows this already. They don't need this reminder.
Yeah, it's that the audience that cares already knows, and the audience that doesn't care isn't going to notice.
And will continue to not care, and will in fact get annoyed at how much time you're spending caring about it.
You're like, just hit the guy, or get hit.
Yeah, can you just take the damage and we move on, please?
Talk shit and get hit, please. That is podcasting in general.
Yay, podcasting. I mean, it is a very challenging thing that you do on a very consistent basis. And I think you get a lot of appreciation from our cast and our audience, which I am glad for, because I know a lot of sound engineers do not get nearly the props they deserve.
I'm incredibly grateful for like the being a sort of known entity. Not how that phrase usually is used, but like within this podcast, because there's also been a lot of times where I'm like looking into a podcast, I'm like, oh, I really like this podcast, and like 1 in 10 times it's like, oh, the GM's the editor, or like this other player's like the editor. That's cool. But the other 9 times, there's no mention of who edits this podcast, of who does any of the like labor other than the acting. And I'm like, who made the music? Who did the sound effects? Who did the audio editing? Like, there has to be someone who did this. Tell me. But like, yeah, it is a good feeling to be recognized as like the person actually doing the episodes. And it is interestingly tricky. I didn't think about this until you were just saying that, but like, I think us as a group, we've talked about like when we do the re-listens, how sometimes chronologically jarring that is, because like we are existing in a space of like we recorded this episode, and then also the episode we recorded 5 episodes ago just got released, and also the episode from 2 years ago just did a re-listen. And like, so that's 3 spots within the same story that were existing. And then since I'm editing the episodes, like I am editing the episode, and then I have to listen to previous episodes to hear like references to things that I'm keeping, like sound continuity and things like that. And then so I have like last week's episode, the week before that's episode, this week's episode, and we also just did a recording for an episode for 5 weeks from now, and the re-listen. So there's a lot of overlap, and I didn't think about that until you just said that a moment ago. That could be part of it.
It's a lot of data in your brain all at the same time. Right before we started recording, we were actually talking about how easy it is to be listening to audio and be like, yeah, I remember all the things that lead up to this, so we must have released those episodes. Not thinking about the fact that like you were present for all the recordings, so of course you remember all the things.
Yes. I was actually just paying attention and not having produced it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. But so I hope you, or Josh, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think this is something, I think this is the first time we've ever had this particular error occur. And I don't think this is something that anybody needs to be too upset about. Like, I really think it's a very mild mistake. The audience barely even noticed.
Or if you are super upset, feel free to throw digital hands at me. I'm here. I'm ready. I'll block with some sound waves, maybe.
I was going to say, what's the game of choice for that? Like throwing digital hands? Like, are we talking Tekken or?
Oh God, I love Tekken. I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad at fighting games.
Well, maybe that's the catharsis they need then. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Kick my butt in Tekken, please. It won't be super hard. I can't put up much of a fight. Feel free. But as a sort of like a thank you, Josh and I are recording this little bonus thing. We're going to talk about some of our favorite tabletop-related-esque podcasts from 2024.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh, why don't you kick us off? What is a notable podcast that did something sort of like unique in 2024 in the tabletop world?
I want to highlight, and this is a little bit of a self-plug, but sometimes that's how that goes.
You pluggers.
Dungeons and Drakenbeams, which is a D&D 5e podcast that is running a alternate universe Animorphs campaign, which, frankly, what a cool concept for a show. But the reason it's a partial self-plug is because they, for their second year in a row, ran an advent calendar game as GM'd by one Alex Maltby. And it has her GMing, and then the cast and the GM that are normally on Dungeons and Drakenbeams running as her players. And it's called A Song of Sugar and Snow, and it's basically a Christmas-themed 30-ish minute episode game for every day up to Christmas Day. So it's 24 episodes released daily over the span of December, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. The amount of lead time, I think in the first episode of this new one, someone mentioned that they're recording it in like July or August or something. And I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was months and months in advance so that they would have enough time to edit, to get everybody together to record everything, because if you tried to sit down and record it all at once, that's 12 hours of usable audio, which means probably closer to 15 to 20 hours of recorded audio that then needs to get edited.
If you're doing it in one go.
Yeah.
If you spread it out, then you still have the like beginning and ends of recording sessions.
Right. Exactly.
Oof. That's a project. That sounds like a heckin' cool project, though. Like I would love to do something like that.
That would be really cool. It's a big lift, and I'm always really impressed at what they come up with. And it's wonderful, wonderful stuff. So definitely check out Dungeons and Drakenbeams. If you like Animorphs, check out their regular stuff, especially because I've been listening to that, and it is quite cool as well. The one complaint that I have for it is that I was like, all right, where's a good jumping off point? Because I know you guys have been recording this for like 3 years, and they're like, episode 1, and I'm like, oh no.
No, but no.
And then I was like, but episode 1 is like 2.5 hours of audio. And they're like, yeah, but stuff happens in the early episodes that you're going to need to know for the later episodes. And I was like, oh, well, I'll work my way. I'll listen to it when I'm feeling it, and it'll be okay. And I'll have a good time. I will say, I'm enjoying the table dynamics more than I've ever enjoyed the table dynamics of a Critical Role that I've listened to. So
there you go. Good.
I'm about it. I'm about it.
As I was listening to some of their episodes, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this kind of thing. Lore goes hard. And it was a very well written book series, in that like it translates, I think, in better ways than most, like the ideas of like coming of age stories and things like that. Which to me, storytelling is like a very powerful tool. And to that degree, one of my favorite podcasts, well, it's the Dark Dice podcast. I know Josh has heard me talk about them before.
I have indeed.
They did a lot of stuff in 2023. I'm trying to see. I haven't caught up with what they were doing in 2024, but I know they had something that I'm very excited to get to. But like that is a podcast, like they focus really hard on the storytelling aspects of it.
Well, isn't that partially a horror genre TTRPG podcast?
Yeah. Dark Dice itself, because there's a handful of different shows under. It's the Fool and Scholar Productions. But I really like Dark Dice, and yeah, it's very immersive horror, very visceral horror, I think would be a good word for it.
Hell yeah.
The entire like focus of how they produce the podcast goes into how can we convey this story in the best way for listeners, kind of thing. And everything from starting you sort of like in the middle of the story ish kind of thing, and then you learn more about the characters' pasts as you progress through, all the way to like, and this is something that I find really fascinating with Dark Dice specifically, is that the GM will narrate actions that happen to characters to the audience, type of thing. So instead of it
Ooh.
being like, you know, Solinar, you're walking through a field, roll a reflex save, type of thing, and then you would roll, and then it'd be like, okay, you failed, so a trap closes on your ankle. Instead, Dark Dice runs that scene, and then they go back and record it with the GM going, as Solinar is creeping through the grass, he doesn't see where he is stepping as his eyes are focused along the tree line, and he hears a click and a snap and feels the crunch on his ankle of a bear trap. And like that kind of almost like fireside storytelling energy is really fascinating for me, because I want to like keep listening, like, go on, tell me more. But like also the voice actors and the actors in that show, most of the audio that you hear as the listener is it's a combination of the stuff that was recorded in the session and then like audio post-production kind of stuff, as the actors will then go back and re-record lines from a scene, or like add on to something, like they'll record them singing some like a song that their character sung in that scene, and then that will go behind the audio of the other two characters that are talking, which actually did something like that in one of the recent episodes. It was the episode where Koza was polymorphing the party, and I intentionally put both Gravy Boats and Alita's like screams of agony behind Chapman describing the things. So it was an interesting thing for me, because I don't usually layer voices, people talking. I try to keep people as apart as possible, but like this was me trying something new. 220 episodes in, always got to try something new. And so in the first part of that episode, I have those two things happening, and at the end of the episode, I also have you and Alon singing the Body Tavern songs in the background of Alex describing what's happening in the bar, and your characters also having discussions. And so, like, if listeners, like, if you listen, like, that is Alon / Josh singing in the background, along with a bunch of tavern walla people. But like those kinds of things, it's tricky to do right. I hope I did it right, but it's tricky to do right, and Dark Dice does it phenomenally. They do such a good job of like layering vocals in a non-musical sense.
Yeah.
So that you have like someone talking in the background and someone talking in the foreground, and it doesn't sound terrible.
I guess it shouldn't come as any surprise that the podcast you wanted to bring up first and foremost was something that had incredible production values.
It has incredible production. It is a podcast. Like I legitimately would love to meet these people one day, and just be like, I want to talk to you about the things you do. Any other podcast?
Chapman wanted us to highlight, and I quote, "Tell the people the Neo Scum crew is back with the Gutter Show."
Yeah, it is.
And I was like, I remember enjoying Neo Scum a great deal, which is a very irreverent Shadowrun podcast with a lot of like kind of grotesque humor, but very like it's clear that it is a show by and for improv comedians.
Yeah.
If you're really
Yes.
into Dropout, but you wish that they did more like mild body stuff and also like poop humor, then Neo Scum is 100% the show for you. If you're not
Yes.
super keen on those things, but you do think the idea of a comedy Shadowrun podcast sounds interesting, don't worry, it's not an all the time thing. It just features prominently enough to bear mentioning.
Their website has a soundboard.
What?
That's
So
cute.
Gutter Show I have not listened to at all yet, but Chapman says one of the Patreon episodes had a moment that was both the hardest I've laughed to an actual play podcast in a while and was an incredible example of allowing dice rolls to completely derail an episode, inform who a character is in a dramatic way, and then keep the story going in a wild new direction.
I love
So
that.
based on that description alone, I was like, oh, hell yeah, they back.
Yeah.
They so
Neo
back.
Scum is a lot of fun.
Neo Scum is a ton of fun. So go check out Gutter Show based on Chapman's recommendation.
Yeah, I've enjoyed everything. I've just did like bits and pieces of Neo Scum. I find it very difficult to, in a similar sense to like I don't love reading narrative books. I'll listen to audiobooks apparently, but I guess in an ironic twist, listening to narrative podcasts, it's very exhausting for me.
I feel like that is a 5-star chefs don't cook for themselves at home situation. Like, I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but it feels like that's got to be related.
I make real good grilled cheeses. Exactly. Yeah, I think that probably is a good part of it, where it's like in a similar, if long form isn't your vibe, like for me, a podcast that I really loved, and they did a lot of really fun things in 2024, is the Many-Sided Media production show, My First Dungeon.
Ooh.
My First Dungeon, they're a tabletop podcast where they introduce like a tabletop game, and it's usually like they'll sometimes they'll have like, or I will say often they'll have the creator on for an interview at the beginning, and they'll ask the creator like, hey, what are some of your favorite things in developing this game? How would you prep somebody for running this game? And then one of the people that was in that episode doing the interview then runs the game, runs a one-shot for a handful of other people. And so their seasons are typically between like 3 episodes and like maybe 6 episodes long, because the first episode is them sort of briefing or the interview. And then the next episode or a couple episodes are them playing the game. And then they have a debrief afterwards where they're like, so what were some of your favorite parts of running this game? And they've gone through so many really cool games. I've loved getting to hear about some of these games. They did a 10 Candles, which was gorgeous and heartbreaking. They've even done, this was really fun. They did a solo RPG. It was called Project Echo, where essentially what they did was the person like talked with the first episode was the interview, and then they were talking with that person about like how they were brainstorming how they're going to turn this into a podcast that isn't just going to be a solo person. And so they're like, well, what if I do like I run through the thing, but then I'm describing what's happening and like turn it into a slight narrative that's still fitting within. And so essentially what they did was they like, because a lot of solo RPGs tend to lean in the direction of like a journaling tool.
Right.
And so effectively what they did was they just wrote a short like audio drama, like a 1 to 2 episode audio drama. Project Echo is pretty creepy too, because it's about you use a day planner, or a year planner, and you have to mark out days as a creature slowly eating time.
Oh my God.
And you have to try and track down the creature through time, bouncing around different days. But days will slowly disappear, so like you'll tear pages out of your You either tear pages if it's a day by day, or you'll just black them out with a marker if it has like weeks type of thing as the
Oh my
creature eats.
God.
Yeah. It's a very interesting. They just did Orbital Blues, which was it's a game about being sad in space. Like being sad is part of the mechanic.
Okay.
And they very recently just got the person who produced that game just made one. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Paint the Town Red, where you play as vampires. You are undead and you need to feel. And so you play as like you're in this area of like complete apathy and like soullessness, and you need to do things to make yourself feel.
Oh.
And like the mechanics kind of shift between this like your health is based off of your health, and like your ability to have more conscious control of your character is based on where you are emotionally, or where your character is emotionally.
Oh.
Yeah, it shifts around. It was a really fun interview. I didn't listen to the episodes yet of them playing it, but yeah, I really love My First Dungeon because I get to hear, often directly from the developer of the game, like an interview of them talking about like, hey, this is the things that we do. And then they sit and play the game. And then afterwards they're like, that was crazy. I sucked at this part, or this part was so much fun. Or it's like, yeah, I don't think this part worked at all. And I was 100% my fault. Definitely one of my favorite podcasts. I think I've only listened to them in 2023 and 2024.
That sounds awesome. Like that's very much, I think, up the alley of a lot of folks who also listen to Quid Pro Roll, is something like that, where it's a little more bite-sized. I've heard some folks are like, I want something that's a little bit crunchier than Quid Pro Roll some of the time. And I've heard some folks say, I want something that's not quite as like broadly narrative as Quid Pro Roll sometimes. And that, I respect that. Like, I also don't like eating the same flavor of ice cream every time I buy ice cream. Like,
yes. You don't only get pickles and pralines ice cream?
Oh, why would you put that taste in my head? No.
I'm gonna get that for you in your food group.
Meh. Look, the go-to in the house is Rocky Road, because there's nothing that Alex and I love more than s'mores themselves. And Rocky Road is about a half inch away from being s'mores ice cream.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't love I hate the texture of cold marshmallow.
Oh, interesting.
When marshmallow gets cold, like it feels bad on my tongue. I want my marshmallow either room temperature or molten hot. I want it effectively a liquid with a crusty shell.
Set it on fire.
Yeah. I want a s'more now. Now that I think about that.
Yeah, me too.
But yes, My First Dungeon, excellent for if you really do enjoy smaller bite-sized things. That's also where, like, this is where I found out about one of my other favorite super simple one-page RPGs, Something's Wrong with the Chickens. They talked to the creator of that, and then that guy enjoyed talking with them so much that he joined the show for several other things.
What?
I think he was also one of the voices on their 10 Candles game.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's very fun. Definitely check out Something's Wrong with the Chickens. Which you can check that out being played on My First Dungeon by Many Sided Media.
Hell yeah.
Josh, do you have one more to finish us out?
I got one mo again to finish this out, and that is Late Starters, which is the same GM as Dungeons and Drake and Beams and one of the same cast, but the concept is it's a bunch of grown adults who start their Pokemon adventures at the like varied ages of being fully grown adults. So in a world where 11-year-olds are out there like, hell yeah, Pokemon adventures, these are like, it's the equivalent of going back to high school when you're like 22 is kind of the vibe of it. Because they're like, I am too grown and knowledgeable of the world to be dealing with this sort of shenanigan right now. Is kind of the starting vibe. So the chaos does pick up rapidly, and there are some delightful shenanigans with things like a Charmander and then Charmeleon, which just sets everything on fire. So
okay, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, I mean it does make sense, but also it's a ton of fun. It's very silly stuff. It's also, there's a little bit of envy from me, and I think that's part of the reason I like it as much as I do, because I first learned to run a table on Pokemon Tabletop United, and because it's kind of a very homebrew system and the guidance for GMs is not super strong at the time that I was running it, I did a less than ideal job of running my table. And hearing them successfully run a tabletop role-playing game as Pokemon, I was like, oh man, this is precisely what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah, good.
So it kind of, it scratches that itch, and also is like, dang, could I have done it this well? I don't know.
Maybe you could.
Maybe I could have. I should reach out and see if their game master will let me come on as a villain.
Yes.
Be like a Team Rocket leader or something.
I've legitimately always wanted to be a part of Team Rocket. Like,
right?
I'm sure they're effectively in the world. I'm sure there may be terrible people. I don't know the actual nuances of Team Rocket. But they are by far the most aesthetic and fun. I don't know, just the black boots and the white. It's so good, and the big red R, so much fun.
Oh, the big red R, yes, 100%. Here's the thing.
Rated R for Rocket.
Rated R for Rocket. Why James and Jesse seem to be out of uniform all the time? All the other Team Rocket members are in like
solid black
outfits with like the cabbie cap on. Like,
yeah.
I don't. What are Jesse and James's deal? Like, I know they're not good at their jobs, but what's happening there? Why are they out of uniform?
Maybe they're really good at their jobs, and they're like executives.
They're so good at their jobs that they appear bad at their jobs.
Yeah. Their Team Rocket secretly is like an organization that's like working to make the world better by like forcing Pokemon trainers to be really good, and all the like Pokemon trainers, like they're a filtering system, making sure that like Pokemon trainers that just aren't going to cut it get discouraged quickly, kind of thing. It's harsh, but you know, maybe in that world it's necessary, and so they're like really pushing so that not everybody becomes a Pokemon trainer. That'd be crazy,
right?
So like, we want to make sure that if anyone's a Pokemon trainer, they really are up to snuff.
Some people need to be barbers. Some people need to work retail. Yeah. Some people need to work like at the Poke Center to heal up all these Pokemon that are constantly getting into battles. Like,
and Team Rocket is committed to making sure that economy stays stable.
Yes. Okay. It makes perfect sense now. I get it. Well, no wonder you want to be part of it. It's all part of your goal for just like stability. Just making sure that things are the way they need to be for things to run smoothly.
Yeah, I want sustainability. I want a world where everyone is eaten by Pokemon, mostly. But that can happen later.
Yeah. That can happen.
I'm okay waiting a little bit for that.
That's not a right now concern.
Yeah, but that's super cool that there is a podcast that's doing that, because I do know of a couple Pokemon podcasts, but none that are running the Pokemon tabletop game.
I don't know exactly what system they're using, and I don't know exactly how closely they're following those rules. But that's not what I was there for to begin with. So
yeah. Even better. They're secretly running like Shadowrun as the system.
It's Blades in the Dark. You know, you know how being a Pokemon trainer is a lot like being in a gang. Like that's really what it's about.
Kind of. You have to build up your gym. That's your headquarters.
Oh my God. It works. It works so much better than I want it
to. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening all the way here to the end spot. I super appreciate you, listeners. I appreciate you, Josh, coming in, hanging out with me as I grovel for forgiveness from the fans for my transgressions.
Thank you so much to everybody who tunes in all the time, to everybody who's on the re-listen chats, to especially to the folks who put in the extra effort to do things like make fan art. Like, that's always so exciting for us to see.
Yeah, I love those. Or the tiny Alucard skit. That was great. Hop on the Discord if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh my word. Yes, so good. Thank you, Gabe.
bit.ly/Goblin Discord.
Well, thank you, Gabe, for plugging the Discord. But also, thank you, Gabe, for being here. Thank you for working so hard to make sure that the podcast sounds so good. Because the podcast always sounds so good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I am grateful for getting to work on this podcast. Even when it is like a million things happening all around me. And I'm like, God, my organization system, impenetrable. There are zero flaws in me literally just typing everything out. How could this ever backfire?
This is going to work 100% of the time.
I did start, I will say, in 2022, I think. I did start on now again, my impenetrable, my perfect system of organization. I have on my laptop on the Notes app grids that I have made that has like dates of release and which episodes and like which bumpers I've used on which episode, so I can have like a pattern and things like that. So at least I have that, but that's for release stuff. That didn't quite help me in this situation. But yes, going into 2025, revigored. Is that a word?
Reinvigorated?
That's the word.
There it is.
Reinvigorated. Feeling vinegary. This is Gabriel, the sound guy, signing off.
And I've been Josh Maltby at Black Cloak DM. Have a great week, y'all, and we will see you in the next release. Bye!